There are many elements that cause the greatness that we know as Beyonce. In this conversation, we are going to talk about the Gene Keys profile of Beyonce Knowles. Now, we are using the birth information that is credited to Astro Theme, so it's important to know that there is a question of accuracy when it comes to the birthday time, but we are going to use this because I do think that we are going to find some jewels when it comes to finding your purpose using the Gene Keys system. Now, the Gene Keys is a conglomeration of the I Ching, human design, and astrology. And we go in depth about Gene Keys and specifically utilizing it with your astrology natal chart in my Udemy course that we have just now launched. So if you'd like to learn more about the Gene Keys, you can check the Udemy course. You can also go to the Gene Keys website, genekeys.com, and get your own profile and begin the process. So if you want to get my style, then definitely check out our course on Udemy, which is now here. Within the Gene Keys system, there are 64 archetypes that actually match to the entire zodiac wheel. In your profile, when you put in your information, you get 11 of the 64 archetypes in your profile. And this is how we like to see it here on Eye of the Crown. We treat astrology and Gene Keys the same way. It's like a blueprint to your life. How is it that you can actually get unstuck, find your genius, and specifically find your purpose? Well, I'm going to tell you that the purpose within the Gene Keys, especially when we are looking at it from Beyonce's profile and understanding her growth, the purpose is a huge step in helping you be successful in life. Now, the Gene Keys has what you call an activation sequence, and the purpose is actually, I guess one could say, the last step of the activation sequence. However, I think that if you are just looking to improve your life tremendously, especially if you're an ambitious type of a individual, you have a business acumen, you want to achieve things, then you can just start with the purpose, because the Gene Keys has a complexity to it, and it takes time to contemplate and understand the entire system. But if you are introducing yourself through the purpose with the Gene Keys, then you're going to find yourself being able to learn the system and learn your own energy in a really strong, access to that. So I'd like to demonstrate this with looking at Beyonce. You'll find the purpose at the very bottom of your Gene Keys chart. According to the birth time that we do have on Beyonce, this is going to be Gene Key 5, right, on line 3 in movement. Now, there are many things that we understand about Beyonce and her growth towards success. But one of the things that is hidden is the fuel and the drive towards that success. What is the purposeful drive that brings Beyonce to be who she is? While some people may say it's the looks, even Beyonce says it's not the diamonds, it's not the pearls. It could be the fact that she had incredible support from her family system. Absolutely. That definitely guarantees success. But when we look at somebody's individual life path, we can find that in the Gene Keys, the purpose is going to give that to us. And for Beyonce, Gene Key 5 is the archetype of the rhythmic. The rhythmic. Rhythmic is based exactly as it says on the rhythms of time. And you can see, learning the Gene Keys, that there is a shadow level, a gift level, and a city level. And you'll see that the shadow of impatience is a big part of Beyonce's purpose. Now, when you look back at her life, when you look back at her introduction to becoming the artist that she is, a lot of us focus on the fact that she was a great singer. But she actually began her work as a dancer, taking dance classes. That's right. And the rhythmic is about the rhythms that we hear and the rhythms of life. And I just find it fascinating that she actually built herself incredibly on understanding rhythms. This is literal rhythms within her music. When you hear in some of her greatest hits, listen to the rhythms, the bass, the beat that she is really kind of evoking. But also in the shadow of impatience, she has cultivated patience. One of the stories that I remember is that when she went solo, her counter, which is Kelly Rowland, also went solo. And Kelly Rowland was going to launch her music at a certain time, which created a need for Beyonce to hold back her infamous first album as a solo artist, Dangerously in Love. So she pushed that back like 6 months, maybe even more than that, in order for Kelly to have her rollout first. Another story that I've heard of a fan getting caught in the elevator with Beyonce. Yes, not the infamous elevator one that you know with Solange, but a fan, or maybe it was somebody of importance who had a story of being caught in the elevator of Beyonce, and they were stuck literally. And she was probably just about to go out and do an interview or some sort of performance, and they talked about how she just surrendered to the fact that they were stuck. She like basically leaned on the wall or sat down, did a lot of breathing, and eventually after some time the elevator was free and she was able to go on and be the person that she is, right? So these are examples of when somebody is cultivated towards patience and they utilize it in their life, and it actually creates that purpose-driven drive. In recent headlines, people have been going crazy over trying to get those Beyonce visuals. And even during her concert, she inspired and frustrated a lot of people by telling the audience that they are the visual, which I find to be very comedic. And we're going to talk about her role as a comedian in another video, as it's connected to her one of her positions, the North Node, I believe. But in this one, I wanted to talk about how the visuals is also an example of Beyonce gifting patience to the world, to her fans. So when you understand the shadow, the gift, and the city layers of the gene keys, you'll learn that the gift layer is something that you can give to others, others can give to you. It's almost like this conscious, actionable layer of the gene keys. And so whether she's intentionally doing it or just so saturated in her purpose, she is helping her fans understand the gift of patience. Because what we understand in and really embracing your life and loving your life and being the person you want to be in your life, that when people operate from the shadow of impatience, it actually is this negative undercurrent that's happening in our lives. We can't be present. We can't be in the moment. And you're just basically empty vessel moving from one point to another, and very much so either running from the past possibly, or anxious about the future and never really embracing the moment. So there's this idea that patience is this undercurrent of negativity, and by cultivating patience one can actually experience a lot more positivity and happiness and presence in their lives. The part that I think really needs to be recognized is that in the literal interpretation of Gene Key 5, the rhythmic, Beyonce has really brought this on in anything that she does, is to be a dancer, is to use rhythms in Run the World, the African rhythms. In so many of her songs, she has demonstrated dance. And while some people would even question her vocals, a lot of people would question her dancing style, but is that really the point? The point is that she utilized the dancing, whether conscious of her gene key code or not. She utilized dancing in her works all the time in order to express the expression of her purpose, which is to be the rhythmic. And so you might look at Beyonce's chart and might be like, well, I want to be great too, but I don't have this in my chart. Well, that's not really the point. The point and the theory of this is that you have a chart of your own and you have a purpose of your own. And if you would like to reach to the heights that are possible for you in life, maybe you didn't have the same cards that are dealt to Beyonce, but you have your own cards. And if you're conscious of learning how to understand these spiritual divinations, you can use spirituality to get you the material things in life. It's this idea that in your vision, you can become become and create your own reality. Therefore, utilizing your gene key profile as a blueprint and focusing on your purpose and saturating yourself in your purpose can get you to the same heights. And so that's what we learn with this. When we look at Beyonce in analyzing her purpose in her gene keys, whether people acknowledge it or not, she is a great rhythmic dancer and has brought rhythm to every element that she does. And so this has actually infiltrated and pushed her, because your purpose is a hidden drive. It is the fuel to your engine. It is the reason that you wake up in the morning and you start to pursue the things that you want, because you're saturated in your purpose. So I think it's one of the things, if you want to simplify how to get going in life, is to use that purpose. And if you find yourself stuck in life, is to use that purpose, because things can be very complex. Your astrology charts can be complex. Your gene key profiles can be so complex. Your human design can be complex. But when we start to take the simple ideas of them and apply them by baby steps, I think you're going to find that not only are you driven in life, but you're not in threat by anybody else around you. Because when you're in your purpose and you're standing with other people in theirs, it's really hard to be threatened by that. If anything, we start to become more unified, recognizing that we're all a piece to a greater puzzle. No longer do we have to pin each other to one another in order to get what we want. We can all rise to our own heights when we are driven by our purpose. And this is why a lot of people get stuck in life, because they think that they have to do the same thing that somebody else has, which leads me to a conversation about Beyonce and Chloe, which I plan to do very, very shortly, in helping people to see that when you're in your purpose, nobody is pinned against each other, but we're all working and building in order to create the greatness that is available for us as a human species. So the Gene Keys really helps us to do that. It helps to take away all of the projections that people will put on each other, and get down to the basics of what is your internal inner responsibility in this life. And so with that understanding that you have a very distinct role to fulfill, no matter if you're in the same industry as somebody, you have a very specific role to fulfill. If you focus on that, it starts to be very clear about the things that you are here to do and the things that you aren't here to do. And you won't get stuck in being distracted by somebody else's path, and you can really start to focus on your own. So I go very deeply into my style and take on using the purpose and the Gene Keys in my Udemy course, which is now launched. Take a look at the link below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace and love.